Alright, so I am going to build a saloon on my property, and I'm going to go ahead and design it here in Sketchup. I put down a 20 by 30 rather, 4-inch foundation, and we're going to do stamped concrete for the floor inside the saloon. And here I am beginning the framing. These, as it's been explained to me, are footers. I do not have a carpentry background, so everything I know is what I've learned on YouTube and different things I've learned in life. My father-in-law taught me a lot as well. I've got him to be able to call and ask questions. But once I got it completely done, I can make a copy of it to get my header, and then I will design a stud. And we're going with an 8-foot wall here, so these are going to be 96-inch studs. Once I get the first stud built, then I will be able to just make copies of it, like you see there. I was told that exterior walls, your studs need to be on 16-inch centers, which is what I'm spacing these apart at. You see, once you get a group of them, you can kind of make this process go quicker. And then this last one, you see it's a little too long. I'm just going to slide that last one back in instead of sliding the next to last one out. Not sure if that's the correct way to do it, but that's how I'm doing it. And then we make it into one group, and we can copy it and slide it over. That'll be the east wall there, and we're bringing this over to cover our west wall. And then, not sure why I'm pausing here, but I'm about to start the framing for the north wall. Get the footboard put in. One thing I did learn with Sketchup, you see I paused right there instead of dragging it all the way across. If you know the distance you're going, you can see in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, it shows measurements. And if you know what the measurement is, then you can just type it in instead of having to drag everything all the way across. We'll make it one group. That way we can make a copy of it and drag it up. And there's our header and our footer. We will make a stud that we can make copies of. And you'll notice throughout this video the mistakes that I make. I'm definitely not a SketchUp guru, but I'm really enjoying playing around with this program. It's a real neat program. I used SketchUp in a career that I was working last year that I can't wait to get back to. Working for Ladder now, we use SketchUp on a 2-dimensional level to help us to make some good quality sketches of roofs. It definitely sped up the process of sketching a roof. For me, at least. I know a few people that could hand sketch a roof pretty much just as fast as I could do it on SketchUp. But now that we got the wall done, we'll make it into a whole group and slide it over to the south end of the building, and then we'll have the entire thing framed in. And now we've got one giant baby crib. Now I'll go ahead and add doors in here, right here. Well, zoomed in. I'll add the doors and the windows here in a little bit. Right now what I'm doing is I'm going to put a beam in the center of the room because that short side of that foundation is 20 feet. And When talking with my father-in-law, he explained that we could use 2x4s or even 2x6s and tack them together to make a solid beam so that we could run 16-foot rafters or ceiling joists. And then it was just my idea to put a solid beam in the center of the room as just an added level of support. And I also thought that this would be really cool to use a solid tree trunk, just cut to the right height. So when we do get to building this, most likely we're going to have a 6-inch, maybe even an 8-inch diameter tree in the center of the room. And here's that beam that I was talking about. I'll put 4 2x4s together. And when we do this, we'll probably just go overkill on it and use wood glue and tack it together with the heavy duty nail gun, and then also run some long screws through it as well. Make sure that that thing isn't going to budge. It becomes one piece. But I started out with 2x4s, and then later in the video you'll see I went ahead and adjusted those and made them 2x10s to add a pitch to my roof. That way it would shed water a little better. So we got that nice and centered. We can go ahead and start doing the ceiling joists, which in my design, I'm also the ceiling joists double as my rafters. And I will find out, I'm sure, in the comment section of this video, if that will be something that we can do or not. I don't see why we couldn't. I live out in the country. I don't have to worry about anything being up to code. I just have to worry about it being functional and lasting. That's the key. And also, I do not know that this is technically the correct way to do this, but I did watch a video on YouTube, and this is how they did it. And so that's the reason I'm designing it that way. The video messed up there a little bit. You can see my inexperience here. I'm using the tools that I have at my disposal to learn how to build this saloon. But it did say that you could put them on 16 or 24-inch centers. I went ahead and did 16-inch centers because that's what the studs were spaced at. But if it is determined that there's nothing wrong with the 24-inch centers, then we may do that just to save a little money on lumber cost. And now that we got one done, we can group it all together to make it act as one piece. And then just make a copy of it and flip it over. It's another neat thing with Sketchup is since you have the 3 different planes, if you need to flip something, you just flip it on the plane. So drag it over and then flip it. And there it is. Now I have a cage. And you can see here I'm going to start finding the center point of this wall so that I can frame in the door. I'm going to have a 5-foot wide door here. And this is where I determined the size of that. That showed 5 foot wide by 6 foot tall. I went ahead and went 5 foot wide by 7 foot tall. I have an older brother that's 6'5". So Kyle, I kept you in mind in this design process. And anybody else that's over 6 foot tall, if you come have a beer out at the saloon or give me your money playing Texas Hold'em, then you won't have to worry about ducking to get into this saloon. It was built with big folks in mind. But here I'm just using the measuring tape to set guides so that everything is lined up exactly where it needs to be. Again, this program is, everything is to scale, so as long as you take your time and build something correctly in the program, then you'll have the designs to build it, and you know that it will all come out just right when you get ready to build. I've only experimented with this one time. I built a chicken tractor, and I built it in here first. And when I got to the house on some days off to actually build it, I bought the material. I bought all 16-foot 2x4s and just cut them down. And I made all of my cuts, and then I started putting everything together, and it came together just fine. I know in the past when I've built things with my father-in-law, we kind of build as we go. So we're designing at the same time that we're building, and that process takes a lot longer because obviously you're having to make your measurements and figure out what size piece you're going to need next. So you're measuring and you're cutting, and then you're putting it in place and seeing if it fits. And you might have to make a second cut, and it just takes a lot longer. If you get it all designed ahead of time, then you just come in and make all your cuts, and it's basically like having a puzzle. You just put all the pieces together. Excuse me, my throat seems to have gotten raspy right as I decided to do my editing. Now I'm just going to muscle through it. I haven't done very many YouTube videos as it is, so it's not like there's going to be too many people watching this, I wouldn't imagine, other than friends or family. Probably just my kids. Aubrey, Kaylin, Kinley, Brantley. Love y'all if y'all are watching this. And I'm getting a 4-foot by 3-foot window framed in now. I'm going to do a window on either side, so I went ahead and put them right in the center of that wall. Trying to do my best to keep it with the common theme of what you see with old saloons. And all the saloons I've seen, the door is right in the center, and they've got a window on either side of the door. Again, you just make your board to length, and then you can make your copies. And then I'll group this whole window frame together so that when I space the boards correctly on the other side, I can just copy that entire frame and drag it over. It still doesn't look like a whole lot yet, but I'm very pleased with the way this turned out. And I don't think I mentioned it yet, this video is 4 times fast forward. So I do not work this quickly in SketchUp. If you are working with SketchUp and you're watching this, understand this video is fast forwarded. I had probably 12 hours of design into this, and I cut it down into a, however long this video is, 38-minute video. And I'm sure the more I use SketchUp, the faster I'll get, but I work a job that allows me a lot of downtime, so even though it was 12 hours of actual design time, I did most of this all in one day. I kind of did some finishing touches this morning, and now I'm getting the video all finalized, and hopefully we'll have it uploaded on YouTube before long, which obviously you guys, it's already on there if you're watching it. Anybody, if you have any suggestions, if you are watching this and you have any suggestions on what I could do to get faster at SketchUp, or if you have any suggestions on things that I've done wrong with the framing process, I'm all about knowledge. I won't take any of it personal. If it's a good idea, then I will utilize it. If I disagree with it, or if I feel that my way is easier, I'll do research into it. But obviously, if it's a good idea, I'll use it. If I don't like it, then I won't. But I accept or encourage any information that you're willing to give me. Here I'm putting a porch on. When I first started building this thing, I was thinking about the roof doubling as a deck so that we could hang out inside and play pool or play poker, or just drink beer and hang out. And I was thinking, well, it'd be really cool. I live out in the country. If we could actually hang out outside. And so I was thinking about putting a deck on the roof. But then I decided that with the old Western look of these saloons, or with the way they look, rather, that I could take that awning over the porch and make that a deck. And with as large as this slab is, that'll just make it a 10-foot by 30-foot deck, which is a pretty decent sized deck if you ask me. So here I'm putting in some pillars to support the awning, and I'm making them pretty large because if we are going to put a deck up there, I need to make sure that if I have a dozen people up on that deck at one time, that it's safe. So I'm going to have some large pillars in the front side, and then I'm going to use some 4x4s on the back. If I find out that structurally they need to be larger, then I can go with 6x6s on the back. These are 6-inch diameter posts, so I'd imagine that a 6x6 would be more than sufficient. I think a 4x4 will work, but I will find out before I build it. I wanted to do cedar post, but when I was doing research into the cost of cedar posts, none of the websites that sell them have their pricing on there. So I would imagine they're probably pretty expensive, and I'm not going to pay anywhere close for cedar that I paid for the concrete foundation. So if it turns out that they are that expensive, I've got a lot of trees on my property, and I can cut down a few oak trees that would give me 6-inch diameter, 7-foot or 8-foot tall posts or pillars. Now I'm starting the framing for the porch cover or the second floor deck. I will let you guys know that the video I recorded this morning of me finishing out the remainder of this build, something happened with the recording. I'm not sure why it is skipping the way that it is bad recording. So I'll get to a certain point in this, and then it'll just kind of skip forward to a finished product. And my apologies for that. If there's anything in there that you see in the design that you're wondering how I did, just let me know. You can put it in the comments section. Here you got me putting in you can see I'm putting in the 4x4 supports for the deck. And sometimes you gotta fiddle with this stuff to get it to line up, or at least I do as early as I am in running this program. There may be easier ways to get that to snap in place. And sometimes for me, I've got to just spin around every angle I can try and get a good look so I can get it lined up and know that it's actually secured so that all my measurements will work out. That bottom board there that you see, I do remove that later. That will not be running across the entryway to the saloon when we build it. I just left it in for now, but later in the build I do actually go in and pull that out of the way. Just pull it down into nothing. Alright, so there's the porch framed in. And the second floor deck. Now, you'll see the siding that I put on here. I'm going to go back in probably with some old, worn out fence pickets. People are usually giving away fence pickets all the time on Craigslist. You know, they'll get a new fence put in, and then they'll just give away the old, worn out fence posts. Well, those things look great for things like this. We've got an outhouse that we're going to build. We're going to do the same thing. And I think that it will keep a real authentic feel to the saloon if we finish it out with those kind of posts. Rhett, if you're watching this, I'll definitely ask you myself, but if you're watching this video, if you come across any jobs where there's a fence being torn down and you don't want to haul the material off, let me or Richard know and we will gladly haul it off, because we utilize that wood and we can use it for other things or just store it for when we get ready to build this saloon. But I will get the siding put on the front and then get the glass put in the windows, and then you'll see me break away. I actually designed the window frames to give them that same type of old Western feel. That's another thing that's really popular right now, is people like those old wooden window frames. And clearly when I build this, I'll put that siding on before I put the front porch together, so that actually butts up to the siding. Starting to come together now that the walls are on. And here we go. I'm doing a 2-inch wide window frame, and then I'll have 1-inch diameter boards running as window dividers through it. That 3x4 window will have 6 different planes of glass in it. You can see here it's real easy to cut something on a 45. So since I got a 2x4, they're 3.5 inches wide. I just went 3.5 inches down to make it square, and then use the push-pull feature, or push-pull tool, to knock that right on out of the way. I'll do the same thing here. I'll do the same thing after I put them together. I'll do the same thing on the other ends. And once I get both of them 45'd on both ends, then I can just make copies of it like I did with the framing. Alright, now that the frame's together, I'll double check the measurements. Clearly that's too long. I had it 48 because that was the width of the window itself. I had to measure it, thinking back, okay, it's 48 and I got a 2-inch wide frame, then just take 4 inches off of the 48. Here you see me with the calculator trying to figure out how far apart I need to space the boards that are going to run up and down in the window. The vertical boards, this horizontal board already knows 44 inches. So I do have to make this a little bigger, shrink it down there, and then make it wider. And then I'll stick it in place, and then I'll have to build some boards to run vertical in the window frame. And again, you can see down there in the bottom right corner where I just plug in the measurements that I need. It makes it very easy once you figure out that you can use your keyboard. You can just start going in the right direction and then plug in your measurements. For the longest, I would sit there and fight and try and get the exact measurement down to the 1/4 inch, and you even have to go in and adjust that because the default settings on Sketchup go by the 64ths of an inch. So you have to go in and adjust that. You can do any number of settings. I set this at 1/4 inch because when I'm building this, I won't be going down to the 1/8. You know, a 1/4 inch will be fine. So now that we got that built, we can put it in place and then make a copy of it and drag it over. You can see I make mistakes, drag the wrong thing, but there's an undo feature which saves people like me, newbies. And here I believe I'm fixing to start running 16-foot 2x6s across the awning, which will be the deck. When we get ready to build this thing, I don't know if I'm going to do that or if we are going to put down some kind of decking like you would see on a roof, like an OSB type decking. We may put that down and just paint it or stain it. I haven't decided yet exactly how we're going to do it. I do know when I priced the deck to do it like this with 16-foot lumber, and if I did that, it would take me 45 2x6s, and that would run me over $400 just to put the 2x6s on. So that would make that deck kind of a pricey deck. And I haven't decided if I'm going to go that route or if I'm going to try and go a cheaper route. But as I did state earlier, I want this thing to last, so that will factor into my decision. I don't want to be replacing the deck, 5 years down the road if I can do something that'll last me 30. And there it is. Kind of saw my editing. I edited the video before doing the narration here, which is another thing that I'm getting new at. This is the very first time I have ever done a video like this where I used the desktop recorder feature to record me building this. Then I went in and edited it to shorten it from a 12-hour build to a 38-minute video. And now I'm coming back in and adding a voiceover to explain what I'm doing as I'm going along. So there's the deck. The dream is to have live music out there at the house, and I think it would be awesome to have a band playing up on the patio up there, and people be out on the lawn or in the saloon. Yeah, I've got a pretty big property. We do lots of big bonfires. So if you're asking yourself, why wouldn't you just have the band on the stage in the saloon? When we have people out, it's usually a pretty big event. So, yeah, it might be comfortable to fit 20 people into the saloon, with it being a 20 by 30 building. but I would much rather have 100 people out in the pasture than crammed up inside of a building, especially one that I'm not putting any AC in. So here I'm starting to frame in what's going to be, I believe I set it at 36 inch in height, so I could cut a 12-footer down into 3 studs, or a 16-footer into 4 studs, just whichever would be the cheapest route. But again, just like with the other framing, once I get the footboard built, I can make a copy, drag it up, and then I've got the header, or in this case the handrail, and then do the studs. So I'm going to go with, at least for the design, I like the way it looks, but we'll see how it all turns out when it comes time to build it. But I'm going to go with lattice on that so that it's at least closed in. I'll probably lattice both sides. I didn't do that in the video, but I haven't decided yet. So then I just made a copy like before and drug it across, and now I can make the front section. You see sometimes you have to make slight adjustments, or at least I do. Math is a little bit off, but it's not easy with the push-pull tool to make those adjustments. If only building in real life were this simple. You cut something a little bit too short, you can just grab your board stretcher and pull it right on out. And we'll put the lattice on the front. And now we have our finished out patio or deck on the second level, which, depending on how everything goes with the livestock coming in on my property, I may let that double as a bow hunting stand, where I can just sit up there and enjoy my property, and if I happen to see something walking by, just have it set up to where I've got my bow where it constantly just hangs up there, and build in a case for it or something where it's always handy. Here, like I said earlier in the video, I was going to extend those 2x4s and make them 2x10s to add a pitch or a slope to the roof so it'll shed water. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm extending these up an additional 6 inches from the 3.5 to 9.5 inches. And now you'll see me come in and put these on an actual tilt. I kind of had to play with that to determine what angle the rafters needed to be at, or the ceiling joists needed to be at that point. I think it ended up being right at a 2 degree tilt, which is not a very steep pitch by any means. That's nearly 16 feet across there. We'll just call it 15 feet across there. And it only raises up 6 inches across 15 feet. So that is a pretty gradual pitch. But it should work just fine with corrugated metal to shed water, and that's the only purpose that I need it for. Alright, and I believe it's get this done, and then you'll see it kind of skip forward to the finished saloon. So you don't get to see me add the decking on the roof or the corrugated metal on the roof. You don't get to see me add a door on the south side or build a staircase, which was fun. It took a lot of research to figure out how to do that because I had no idea where to even begin on building a staircase, but I did know that I wanted to build it the correct way so that when it came time to actually build a staircase, I would know how to do it. So the staircase that you will see here in a little bit is built correctly. There it is. There's the finished saloon, Oaks Crossing Saloon. I got a staircase there on the side. Got the swinging doors in the front. Take a look around in here. I haven't finished this thing out. I'll have to come back in and add the bar, add a poker table, add a pool table, add a dartboard. You can see the walk feature doesn't really... I'm not very good with it yet. It's the first time I ever tried to use it. Probably should have practiced with it a little bit before doing this. We'll take one last look around. I believe the second time I try to go up those stairs, the same thing happens. I get right up to the top and then fall back to the porch. But I think it's pretty cool that the doorway's open right now, but we will put a door in there that you'll have to actually open. Yep, it fell right back down. But there I am standing on the porch, Oaks Crossing Saloon. I'm very pleased with it. Thanks for watching.